Sydney Bowles here with your monthly superintendent update with Burlington School Superintendent Dr. Eric Conti. Dr. Conti, thank you so much for being here.
Sure. Hi, Sydney.
Hello. I'm going to ask a question that is perhaps betraying, as usual, my own ignorance. I assumed coming up at the end of the school year, things would kind of slow down a little. It's not really what's happening.
Nope.
No? You doing okay?
Yeah. No, it's fun. It's like a old school roller coaster where you sort of climb all year, and we're sort of cresting the top, and it's just going to be a mad dash now to the end.
So are you a fan of the adrenaline?
Again, yes and no. This time of year is very exciting. I think especially for our high school seniors, it's a huge transition. I think we have other big transition years, but I think it's a time to recognize a lot of accomplishments and also I think a great time of year to express a lot of gratitude. So there are, I think, really great parts about this time of the year.
So the first topic I want to cover with you, this feels like it was 9 million years ago, but this has happened since the last time we talked, is town meeting.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff about school funding, school finance, school programming that happened there. One of the big things that came up was two sort of joined requests that the school made, that you made, to repurpose some money that was appropriated last year, add some new money for a feasibility study for the high school.
Mm-hmm.
Explain the rationale for taking some of that money and putting it towards this other thing.
Well, I think the high school was opened in 1970, 1971, so everyone recognizes that the building needs a lot of work. It's something like, what's it, huge, 280,000 square feet, or I might have my numbers all wrong. So I think the challenge with some of the repairs that are needed is they're very expensive. And in the town meeting presentation last year, again, and town meeting's always very supportive, there was a lot of questions about, we know the building needs work, but is this the first thing that needs to be done? Is this your highest priority? And I wasn't feeling like I had a firm enough answer, nor the expertise to be definitive. So the feasibility study will really lay out, I'm hoping, a 10-year plan for this building, and with the experts who need to do that. And we're really trying to follow the state process, even though we're not in the state grant program. So if we ever are accepted into the state grant program, then maybe looking back, some of what we're spending could be potentially reimbursed. But I think the state program is also a very good program for us to follow. So again, hoping in a couple years, we'll have a plan for this building. And then when I go back and might need money for a repair, I can definitively say, here's the top priority, here's why, what's the top, why it is, and here's what's next. So that's why we removed a warrant article for a need the building has. No one questioned the need, which was sort of making the music room floor more accessible, and took that money and put it towards the larger feasibility study. And again, what I said at town meeting is, if they tell me the music room floor should be your first priority, then I'm going to go right back and ask for that money again and take care of the floor.
But that money was appropriated. That was a successful warrant article, and now you're in the process, along with the high school principal, Mark Sullivan, of forming a committee to start to work on that. How's that going?
Well, I think we're going to, again, with Mark and the school committee, form a building committee like we would if we were in the state pipeline. Again, we're going to follow the same process. We're going to hire an owner's project manager who's going to come in, and those are the design and construction experts, and they're going to put together a plan for this building, and then what we should prioritize and what it should look like. We house about half the number of students here currently that the building had when it opened. So BCAD is in some of what used to be classroom space, as is the central office. So there are potential wings of the building that might need to stay, and then are there other wings that could come down? Could we keep the gymnasiums, keep the auditorium, which would be larger than any auditorium we would get through a state process, because that auditorium was sized for 2,000 students, not 1,000 students. But I think someone will map that all out, and then and then we'll at least have an idea of what's next. And we don't have a sort of a clean, clear 50-acre site to build a brand new high school, so I think it's going to have to take place here. And so we need some support, and I'm very grateful that the town approved the feasibility study. I do think it'll give much clearer answers, allow for much better financial forecasting, and then much better educational programming sort of moving into the future.
Is there something, risky isn't the right word, but I don't know, something about having a lot of balls in the air, having simultaneous processes going on with Fox Hill now incorporating Pine Glen into that, and the high school, multiple feasibility studies and multiple sort of like repair processes in different places. Does it get messy to have all that going on at the same time? How do you manage that?
Well, I guess it is, I guess, messier, but that's what the need is, and then we're trying to bring in some help, and I guess the fear that I have is, that I'll drop the ball on something or forget something that's critical. But again, have a lot of good help, a lot of talented people.
And a lot of goodwill, I think, from the town.
Yeah, no, and I think everyone sees the clear need. We're not sort of making up the building needs.
Yeah.
And then I think we're seeing a growing mismatch between the program we're offering and the spaces that we're trying to house those programs in. So I would say the buildings, you want the buildings to match the talent of the people who are inside them. It's the people inside them that are always most important. But when the buildings start to become a limiting factor, that's really when we need to start thinking about making changes.
I want to dive into the Pine Hill Fox Glen building a little bit more. There was just a meeting last night. We were talking again about the different design schemas for a big 640 student school, separate schools that are on the same site that share common spaces, just repairing Fox Hill. Different options are in the air, and I think folks listening will have a basic understanding of what those are. You might not like this question. What are your personal pros and cons lists? What goes through your head when you think about these different ideas?
I think it's connected to what I just said, is I don't want the building to be a limiting factor no matter what the building is. If you ask, can I design or manage or lead an educational program in sort of any building space, I would have to say yes, but that's not ideal. And so the important thing for me right now where we are is for us to make sure we clearly define what our program is and have the state agencies that are involved support and accept our program. And then really trying to take the building out as a limiting factor in terms of delivering that program. So that to me is the priority right now. I know there are many other concerns that people have that they bring up all the time with traffic and size and neighborhood, and all those things are sort of really important. So I don't want to minimize them. But if we don't want to choose an option that limits programming because we can only make these choices every 40 or 50 years. So it's really important that we have our program clearly defined.
We are on, you said this to me earlier before we were on camera, that we were sort of on step 1 or 2 of a multi-step process, and there are appropriate questions to be asking on each step of the way. Of course, we have to think about the step 6 questions while we're on step 1 or 2, but those aren't sort of the most critical or the first questions. Mm-hmm. So what are the questions now that are most important for making the right choice in step 1 or 2?
What do we want that student experience to be? Again, what programs are we delivering? What's the appropriate space in 2023 for delivering that? So I think those are the questions where we are currently at, and then getting the state agency that we're working with, we're partnering with MSBA to agree with that. And I think it was important for us to, where their process is very scripted, and a lot of the options that you mentioned are because of that process, actually they all are, and to demonstrate also to the Burlington community that we're willing to push back. So I think initially when they came back supportive of a grant for Fox Hill, which was our initial application, they applied their values, their standards to that, which was a class size of 23, which really they said in applying that value that they held, we only needed 3 elementary schools. And that would have affected, the class size would have affected not just a Fox Hill or a combined Fox Hill, but would have also affected Memorial and Francis Wyman. So here was a state agency coming into town to say, we want to impact all of your elementary schools if we're going to be a partner. We really pushed back and said, we have a history of smaller class sizes, want you to support that. And that's what really pushed the 4-school option when they accepted Burlington having a lower standard of elementary class size than they normally apply across the Commonwealth. So I do think there's been a lot of pushback, there's a lot of back and forth, and those are always step 1 and 2 of sort of working together. And I do think that, again, right now, for me, the next 2 to 3 weeks, it's really important to get our program finalized and then to make sure that they accept sort of all aspects of that program so we can properly start to think about what the building design is going to be to hold those programs. And then I think we'll get to the point of, is this best over 1 location, 2 locations? What are the consequences of that? And I think those are all answers that, again, are critical for us to have. And I do think some of the frustration that I'm also feeling is because many of the Fox Hill community felt like we had this conversation in 2019. We had public forums. There was a vote by the school committee to maintain 4 elementary schools. All that did exist, and all of that is sort of the current situation. And then the state agency came in and said, again, great what you all did, but you need to look at 3 elementary schools. And so I think there's some frustration there as to, who are they and why are they telling us this? But they're a financial partner, they're a design partner, they're a partner that dictates the process, so we have to answer these questions. And I think that, again, that those conversations had already taken place is also leading to some frustration. So I think we'll get there. We have to trust the process. Like I said, we're in step 1 or 2. I think we'll continue to answer questions, continue to define our program. I think if all of that goes well, a lot of the concerns that were expressed in 2019 haven't changed, so we have to incorporate those into as we move forward. And I think we'll end up in the right place for the community.
I want to ask a clarifying question, maybe for people who aren't as in the school universe as you are. And this is a question that you could probably spend weeks talking about, and I'm going to ask you to answer in a minute. What is, when you talk about defining our educational program, what are the buckets of things under that fit into what an educational program is?
Cindy, really simply, if our elementary program was to provide students with art classes 4 or 5 days a week as opposed to once, we would need more art classrooms. It's as simple as saying, what is the elementary experience? What does a student week look like? And then what are the spaces that need to be assigned to deliver that program well? Okay. So it's very formulaic, simple. It's very, very literal. And so that's what we need to do. It doesn't make sense for us to have a building or to build a building that doesn't support what we're trying to deliver. Okay.
These deadlines are coming up fast. June 26th, I think, is the approval of the education program, and then the preliminary design program is in July?
I think we're going to do a first and second reading, so I think it's going to be given to the school committee on June 13th as a first reading, so it'll be public at June 13th, and then the school committee will vote on the 26th, again, which is a atypical Monday night meeting of the school committee. So they'll vote on the 26th, and then it'll be submitted, I think, sometime in early July to the MSBA for their approval.
Talk about riding the roller coaster.
Yep.
That's a lot, really fast.
Yep.
Okay, I want to switch focus a little bit. Last question before I let you go. At the last school committee meeting, it came up that the school is going to be required to reissue a request for proposals for food service in the district after some changes from the state. Mm-hmm. And this is really shortly after we sort of solidified our contract with Whitson's Culinary Group.
Yep.
It's kind of a bummer to have to do that again.
It is.
Yeah. Is it possible that we end up with Whitson's again if we reissue a request for proposals?
It is, but it's also possible we'll have to look at others. And I think the state changed some of their definitions, and We are impacted by bureaucracy as much as people sometimes feel they're impacted by bureaucracy when dealing with us, and certainly understand that. So I think technically the state viewed our initial awarding as an emergency procurement because it was mid-year, and so they changed the rules for sort of the emergency procurement, and that's why we have to go back and do a different process. So all that being said is it's a lot of work for our business office, and because they've already just gone through the work, and the change was obviously something that got a lot of attention, and but we'll see who applies. And again, this food service is something that's highly regulated, both federally and from the state level. And so we want to make sure that we're following all the rules in order to maximize the reimbursements and maximize the quality, and sort of it's not there's very little local control of the food service part of what we deliver.
I don't know if you saw this, but some of the student journalists here at our BCAT BHS program did a video on student responses to the food service program. It seems like it's pretty popular, the Whitsons, among students.
Yeah, I think there was changes. Again, I think there was a lot of hard work, and a mid-year change put a lot of stress on the staff, and I think they responded really well. But I would say some of the initial impetus for looking at some alternatives did come from students as well. So there was a presentation, I think 2 years ago, from some high school students that were looked at what some other neighboring districts were doing, some of the nutritional value, quality, other aspects of their lunch programs, which were very important to them. So we do try to listen to our students when they give us feedback, and this change was part of that.
Eric, those are all of my questions for you. Is there anything else, any other shout outs you want to do before we finish?
No, I think this is the last time we're going to meet before graduation, which is coming up on Sunday. So again, my perspective is a little bit different. Sometimes graduation is about senior year, but to me it's really about a 13-year journey, and there's so many talented educators that have contributed to where our seniors are at this point in their lives, and it's a big transition, and I just can't thank those educators enough, and they've really prepared our graduates for whatever comes after Burlington, whether that's more education, whether that's military service, whether that's the workplace. We are really focused on, I think, helping to create good people, and this class really demonstrates, I think, that and makes us all look good, right? So I think we want to take credit, but certainly along with their families, our educators have just done a phenomenal job, and again, all 13 years to contribute to where the kids are right now. So graduation is just it's a culminating event, but it's also, I think, a real, I love that day. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, very cool. This has been Superintendent Update with Dr. Eric Conti here on B News. I'm Sydney Bowles, your host. Dr. Conti, thank you for being here.
Thank you.